And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And joining me is Bunny Hull. Bunny's got quite a lot of credits to her name. Bunny is the founder of the Dream a World Education nonprofit. But you might recognize her name because Bunny is a very well-known singer, uh, actually songwriter, musician, and author. Bunny is the recipient of 20 gold and platinum certifications, a Grammy Award and 2 nominations, an Emmy nomination, and a BMI Performance Award. Gosh, Bunny, thanks so much for joining us. And I'll tell you, you have performed with some of the greatest people ever in this business. We're going to talk to you about that too. And of course, Dream a World Education nonprofit. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Deborah.
Yeah. Before we talk about the nonprofit, that is really quite amazing. I want to start with you as a very young person. Where did you grow up, and when did you start, with music?
I actually grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was a transplant born in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is where my dad was from. My mom and dad moved to Vegas when I was very young. My mother was a singer. She worked in places like the Latin Quarter and nightclubs all over the East Coast. And so she followed my dad, and they brought me to Las Vegas, where I grew up. Actually went to Our Lady of Las Vegas Catholic School, which always got a chuckle. It was a great place to grow up. People wonder, how do people grow up there? But I grew up off of the Strip in a neighborhood. But I was exposed to a lot of entertainment, and my mother exposed me to the arts at a very early age.
Oh, yeah. Having grown up in New Orleans, I couldn't imagine. I mean, music is everywhere, street corners. I absolutely love New Orleans. One of my sons is in school there, and it's such a vibrant musical community. You know, you can walk down any street and just hop into any restaurant or nightclub, and there is music. It's absolutely stunning. So that must have had a real impression on you as a kid, huh?
I think I was very young when we left, but I really believe that the soul of New Orleans inhabits me and followed me
Mm.
wherever I went, because I was attracted as a young girl to a lot of rhythm and blues music, a lot of African American artists who've greatly influenced my career as a
Mm.
singer and as a songwriter.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So here you are, Las Vegas, and I believe that you started your career at a very young age, the age of 15.
Well, I started writing at the age of 15. It was
Mm.
sort of therapy for me. My mom and dad divorced early when I was around that age, and music became my therapy. Songwriting became my therapy, and that was my key to getting to know myself, to become more aware as a human. And I think it's something that I carried with me into the nonprofit, which I know we'll get to. But yes, I mean, I became a student of dance and music from the age of 7 years old, dance even a little earlier. And so all of that has contributed to my growth as a someone in the arts and meant everything to me.
As a young person, did you have a lot of arts education, music, and all sorts of arts when you were going to school?
Well, interestingly enough, I did not have arts in school.
Mm.
My high school was the first place I got to that had a choir, and I joined the choir. But my mother had me in private dance lessons and private music lessons from an early age. So that was my education. And I think having missed that in school is one of the reasons why I have carried that into schools myself. My first job was at 18 years old, right out of high school, working with Gene Kelly in the only show he ever
Well,
did in Las Vegas. It makes me feel like I'm about 100 years old to say that because that's a
what
long time ago.
what are you gonna do, right? We are who we are. So how fortunate for you that you were able to work side by side with Gene Kelly, even for that one performance. Gosh, tell us about that.
It was amazing. Well, at 18, my mother brought me to Los Angeles. We auditioned for a man named Greg Garrison, who produced the Dean Martin show, and he was producing the the show, Gene Kelly's Wonderful World of Girls in Vegas. So I auditioned, I got the audition, I went back to Vegas and I went into that show. I got to waltz with Gene every night.
Oh my gosh.
I was a nervous wreck. I had never really done any kind of ballroom dancing, but here I was waltzing with Gene Kelly, and I stepped on his feet so many times. I'm embarrassed to say, and he took it all in stride. And I'll never forget the night when I didn't step on his feet, and he said, "Good." And he was so encouraging. It's such a very kind and sweet man, and what a legend to be able to work with in my very first show. Unbelievable, really.
And to make you feel so good about yourself, right? Here you were stepping on Gene Kelly's toes. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
And right. And to make you feel like, hey, I can do this, which I think was so powerful for him to do that, because he could have made you feel like a real clod, but he didn't, instead he made you feel like it's okay, we got this. And then wouldn't you know it, came a dance where you didn't step on his toes, right?
It was totally, and I think that influenced my career, having that kind of support in my very, very first job, probably in ways that I'm not even aware of. And actually right now, even thinking about that, how meaningful that was to me,
Yeah.
to have that kind of support the first time around.
It just goes to show how important it is to have that kind of support as a young person starting out, and even younger in schools, right? Which is leading me a little bit to your nonprofit. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why did you start this, please? What motivated you? What inspired you?
It was after a long career in the industry, a career in music, a career as a songwriter, and having been asked by a very dear friend of mine named Bonnie Holmesy, who was a Martha Graham dancer, who then opened and founded her own foundation. And she invited me into a school and said, "Bunny, do you want to come and do a songwriting residency workshops, a set of workshops in a school for some fifth graders?" And I said, "Sure, why not say yes?" I'm a person who says yes a lot. So that's what I did. I had never written a curriculum, but I wrote a curriculum, a 12-week curriculum for these students. And I went in and I had a ball with them. It was an inner city school, Rosemont Elementary, near downtown LA. Made a lot of connections there with wonderful educators, but got to work with some amazing children and be able to share what it was about the art of songwriting that I felt was so important, and how you could talk about who you were and your experiences, and how that could benefit someone maybe the way that it benefited me. That was what hooked me. And then it
Yeah.
wasn't until some years later, this was in 1999, so I had already won a Grammy by then. I had been working with, people like Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, and as a singer, and had started getting my songs recorded by a lot of different people. So I had all that in my sort of arsenal in my backpack, right? I was carrying all of that with me. And I wrote a series of children's books. I started writing children's music. This sounds like a winding road, a journey that was totally unplanned. However, it was just something. I always say I followed the breadcrumbs. I didn't plan any of this. I feel like I've always been a person that sort of followed my intuition, listened, and followed the road ahead of me. So I ended up through using my books called the Young Masters Little Wisdom series. I wrote some. I won some awards for that series. I wrote music with that series. I thought, maybe I could do something with this in schools. And lo and behold, I heard about that the Music Center, the Actors Fund, and the Music Center were teaming up. That's now called the Entertainment Community Fund, but they were up to teach artists how to write curriculum. Well, what a better time for me, right? Just fell right in my lap. So I signed up, no questions asked. I would love to do this, learn to write curriculum. Leonardo Bravo, who was the educator who worked for the Music Center at that time, who was teaching this, said, "Bunny, you've got this set of books, and they're all about values, and they're all filled with music. And this has to be a residency program that you bring into a school. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, it sounds good to me. I dug in. I started writing it. We ended up going into Leopoldini Elementary, which was now run by the principal, Brad Rumble, who I met in Rosemont Elementary when I did that very first residency program. So
Wow.
all those connections.
Let me dial it back for a second to your books. Are they still in publication? Could you tell us you said there's a series of books.
They're the Young Masters Little Wisdom series. It's a series of 6 books with music and stories. They're for children 4 through 8. They're still available. You can find them on Amazon.com. They're the Young Masters Little Wisdom series, and they're the Friendship Seed, the Magic Eye, the Invisible Power. They all focus on a different secret of the heart that we carry with us, which is the name of the program that teaches.
That's beautiful. What age category?
The books are for children 4 through 8. In schools, we deliver programs for children 4 through 8. So we're following that, and we're actually working up to delivering program all the way through to 5th grade and then beyond.
So tell me, what does a typical, school calendar year look like? Your partnership with the schools. Would you tell us, like, what does it do? You go into the schools. Of course, as a nonprofit, you're raising money to be able to do this. So that's very important that our listeners know that. We'll talk about that at the end. But tell us about the program specifically.
Well, the program, again, is called Secrets of the Heart. We typically work on a school year. We'll go in. We have 3 different programs that we offer, as well as a web-based program. Secrets of the Heart hybrid program is a program where we utilize the web program that we've created, which is a year-long program that has teachers working in classroom with 15-minute programs to introduce children to an art form, to a secret like friendship or compassion or kindness, and a world location. So we're teaching them all of those things. We're teaching them about the world they live in. So that program works year round. And then we send in a teaching artist to enhance that program throughout the year. The other programs that we have are the One World Drum Circle, where we bring a 12-week drum circle into a school where they learn rhythms from around the world. They learn more secrets like respect and compassion, and then they learn about the countries that those rhythms are from. Then the third program is called Dance in America. That is a program that teaches everything about dance, from ballet to hip hop, jazz. We teach rhythm and blues like the Temptations would do.
Oh, I like that.
As children are learning a little bit about dance, through from ballet, the foundations of ballet, into modern dance today.
It's absolutely beautiful. And this is curriculum that you designed, really, right?
It is curriculum that I designed, and we've been adding to that as well. We now have programs in photography and mask making, puppetry, and in theater arts as well.
It's amazing to me that so many arts have been taken out of school curriculum, and it's one of the most vital. Even if you have no interest at all in becoming an artist, it really expands the way your mind looks at things should you become a surgeon or a researcher. It's really critical in terms of our critical thinking. So I am so grateful that you're doing this for our kids, because when they took it out, I just think, the level of education and just sort of the level of thinking for kids, it really went down in our school system. So how many schools do you serve here throughout Los Angeles?
We're in 7 different schools right now. Our web-based program, however, is in 49 different schools. And that program has enabled us to leap from just the areas that we can serve with teaching artists, and it's created an economical program that's a tool for teachers. We're in the Torrance School District with that, and we're getting ready to take a giant leap into about 25 other school districts in California.
Congratulations. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really thrilling to see something that actually developed as a result of COVID and how we were going to reach children during COVID to becoming something really successful that can benefit so many students.
And when you say that, it's because, a lot of your programs went online, is what you're saying. And
Yeah.
then because of that, you were able to expand some of your programs. Yeah,
exactly. And I have to tell you, the arts are still in trouble coming into schools in terms of, yes, economically. I mean, Prop 28 passed, but now there are other money for education from the state that is not going to reach some of the schools this year. When the budget comes down in June, there's a real fear that there's going to be a lot of programs cut again. All of our partner schools are telling us this year that that's the case. So, just when you think things are going to get rolling with the Prop 28 money, it's not really all roses like you think it would be. So we have a lot of fundraising to do.
I have one thing to say to people about that. Be very careful how you vote. And by that, I mean, be very careful. Look at the props, look at everything. This is really important because a lot of times people think they're voting for something. And then in fact, it's almost the opposite. So those props are very confusing. You've got to be really careful when they're on the ballot. You've got to look and dissect everything. I'm sorry that
And I have to say, it's not necessarily the Prop 28 money that's not coming, but it's the Prop 28 was supposed to add on additional money for already existing programs. So that money came, but the other money is seeming to be cut back. So there's been a trade-off there that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting, and it all sort of relates to one another. So, to my point, just be careful. When you're out there and you're looking at stuff, make sure that everything is going where it's supposed to, which is very difficult to do. The paper trail sometimes drops off and you're like, wait, what happened? But to your point, this is why the fundraising is so critical for what you do, right?
It is. And fundraising is already, I mean, if you told me I was going to be a fundraiser earlier in my life, I would not even know what that felt like. But I have learned to ask for money, which is not not always an easy thing to do. We raise our money through private donors. There are many people that support us, that have supported us for years. Foundations like the Herb Alpert Foundation, Dwight Stewart Foundation, California Arts Council, government, funding, Los Angeles County Arts and Culture. So there are a lot of places that we go. We're always writing grants. It's an ongoing process. It's a very labor-intensive process. Teaching the arts is the fun part, and raising the funds is a challenging part of the work that we do.
Now let's go back to that incredible career of yours that has spanned many, many decades. And we left off with you stepping on Gene Kelly's toes. So let's go forward. I love that, huh? That's a great story, by the way. Let's go, forward from there, because you have worked with some of the most incredible talent. Talk about aging oneself. You worked with Jimmy Durante. You've worked with the likes of Michael Jackson, Irene Cara. Let's talk about it all. Let's talk about, the Grammy. Let's talk about how that came about. Well, it's incredible. Your career is really quite outstanding. Go ahead, Bonnie. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I have to say, before since you mentioned Jimmy Durante, that I got to rub noses with Jimmy Durante every night. That was part of the shtick that we did. I know. I have a picture of that somewhere, but yeah.
Oh, wow.
But that was the early part of my career. And then I moved to Los Angeles, because I wanted to pursue a career in songwriting. I did piano bar. I played all over the place in Los Angeles, including the Continental Hyatt House, which we call the Riot House, up on Sunset, across from where House of Blues was. I got to meet some industry people there. That was sort of the beginning of it for me. I used to take meetings with producers and A&R people all over Los Angeles, carrying my briefcase full of cassette tapes at that time and lead sheets, and letting anybody hear my music that I could. I started getting some things recorded actually when I was working at the Riot House, and I met someone. I met Harvey Mason. I don't know if you know Harvey Mason. He's like one of the world's famous drummers, session drummers.
Wow.
Works with Bob James and Foreplay, and I recorded a duet on one of his albums, and that was one of my first steps into recording. And then I started getting some other gigs, working with as a background singer. I worked with DeBarge. I worked with Anita Baker. I also worked as a harlot with Bette Midler for a hot second. I didn't work long with her because harlots were a little edgy, and she always said, "Bunny, you're too sweet to be a harlot." But I did get to work with her a little bit, and that was really a thrill for me. I worked with Michael Jackson on his Thriller album. I was a PYT. Quincy Jones, of course, was a producer on that album. It was a thrill to work with him, and I got to work with him quite a few times. And I always thought it was really a gift to be able to work as a background singer, as a songwriter, and be a background singer, because it was an education to watch how other producers worked. Because as a songwriter, you're producing your own demos, right? So to see how other producers worked in the studio with singers, with musicians, that was an amazing experience for me, and something I carried through. And working with Quincy Jones, I mean, the things you learn from people, they will probably never know that they taught you. But I learned from him that you hire someone to let them do what they do. You don't tell them what to do. If you hire someone who's really good, you bring them in and you let them give their gift. And that was the gem that I learned from him. He was a master at that.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries on him because I think he's so incredibly talented. And that is one of the takeaways that I got, that he brings people in to do what they do. And I love that, because when you're bringing together such talented people, that's what you have to do. You can't have them go in that box.
Yes.
It just doesn't work that way with an artist, and he instinctively knows that. How wonderful. What was it like working with Michael? Everybody always wants to know that, right? It's like, gosh, if I could, I wish I could have met him, and I never did.
My working experience with him was very limited. So he was a very shy man.
Yeah.
That was my experience with him. And he was there. We sang together when we did PYT and Startin' Something. But he was just very shy, So that's the side of him that no one saw, because when he was on stage, he was everything but shy. He was confident and knew all of that. But yet there was this side of him that maybe, well, I wouldn't say insecure, but just shy, that was my experience with him.
Or maybe just in his head, looking all around and taking it in, and just trying to figure out how, what he needs to bring to something. I mean, I don't know. I didn't meet him, but there's always something behind those shy people. They've got so much going on in their head. They're observing.
Yeah.
Right?
No, he knew everything he was doing. It was outside of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the others that you've worked with that have had an incredible impact, not only on you personally, but on your career.
Well, I think some of the albums I enjoyed working on the most were Anita Baker. I loved her music. I loved singing that music. I met a lifelong friend, Valerie Pinkston, who worked with a group that Anita was in before she became a solo artist, and other singers like Jim Gilstrap. And I'm a person who loved collaborating as a background singer. I never had a burning desire to do a solo album, although I did one in Japan. I loved being a part and making harmonies with people. And those harmonies were some of the richest and most beautiful harmonies. Sweet Love, I sang on Sweet Love. And
wow.
So, that's one of the highlights of my life, I think, that. And DeBarge, I love DeBarge. Right?
Absolutely.
Another, these are rich harmonies. That's where my soul lived. And I, it's kind of a joke people thought I was Black because I only sang on R&B albums, which was the highest compliment I could ever have been paid. I went to a studio one day. I'm not sure who the producer was, but I walked in and they said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Bunny Hull." And they said, "No, you're not." They
I
thought
love that.
Bunny Hull was Black. But I worked on almost exclusively R&B records. The only exception maybe was Billy Idol. I worked with Billy Idol, and however, it was a Black section with Stephanie Spruill and Alex Brown, two amazing background singers. But yeah, it's been quite an experience, being in my body and getting to do all these things. I think I'm always grateful when I look at all of the things that I've been able to do. And
oh yeah,
a couple of years ago was inducted into the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame, which was something that came out of the blue. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that at all, and it was what a gift.
what a gift. What was that like, accepting that award? And also to tell you, what was it like being on stage at the Grammys? Would you tell us what that feels like? Because it really happens from a culmination of work and collaboration. And then there you are in those moments. So talk to us.
Yeah, it's an out of body experience, because
Yeah.
I think I almost wish I could have do it again, just so I could be more present, because you're experiencing so many things, so on the outside, to be able. I'm always amazed when I see people get up and they're so articulate and composed. I didn't feel articulate and composed at the time. I was actually the first person in the group of songwriters that got up to say something, but it was otherworldly to me. And I took my dad with me. He was my date, because he was the one. My mom had passed on many years before, and he was the one that supported me and made me believe that I could do anything. Both my brother and I. My brother is in, well, not so much now, but was in the music industry his whole life, and a Grammy nominee as well.
Are you still performing and working on your music, or are you primarily so dedicated to your nonprofit that that's where you're spending most of your time?
I do spend the lion's share of my time with the nonprofit. I get to pick up, on the other side, you're seeing my recording studio here behind me. I get to there, not so much, but whenever I can. If we have music that I need to write for something that we're doing, for example, you mentioned the Emmy nomination that was for a documentary short called The Ripple Effect, that was about child education, and I got to write a end title song for that. So that was a thrill. I got to put my songwriting skills back to work anytime those kinds of things come up. But I don't go out searching for records, people to record my songs anymore. Not that they're not here. And that's the beauty of songwriting, is that, your songs are like your children, and you can find homes for them at any time, because a good song can last forever. A really good song.
Is it very different today in the business? It's got to be, right? Because you were saying that you would have your bag full of cassettes, and you would go walking around and doing whatever it was that you were doing with that bag of cassettes. Nobody's doing that anymore. How different is it for an artist today?
I think it's exceptional, totally different. I don't know what it would be like. I think maybe you go on a show like The Voice, that's how you get over. And I think that's kind of, those shows are fantastic and the people on them are fantastic, but sometimes I feel like they're promoting fame instead of art. Because I think there are a lot of children, that are watching this that want to be famous. That's their goal. I want to be in front of the camera. I want to be famous. I want to have celebrity. And that's a big thing to bite off and chew, celebrity and all that comes with it. And we watch, what people go through with celebrity. I'm almost glad I never got that kind of celebrity, because I have an anonymity and I liked kind of staying in the background and doing my art, because the art is the most important thing, the quality what you're writing about, what you're singing about. I always tried to write songs that had powerful, positive messages like New Attitude and Ready for a Miracle and
Oh,
Freedom. And,
wow.
those were the songs because I think the world needs more positivity. I mean, every song can't be positive, but we need it. If we look back into the 70s and the 80s with music, there were a lot of positive songs, and songs that talked about what was going on in the world and how we could make it better. Marvin
Well,
Gaye
it's,
went
go
on,
ahead. You said
just
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye, what's going on? He talked about the
Oh,
world and what did we need to do better in the world. Love Train. My friend Thelma Houston just re-recorded Love Train. That's a song that will go on forever, right? Because of the message that it has that the world needs to hear. So those are the kind of songs
well,
I tried to write.
it's so interesting how so many groups and solo acts from that time are continuing to perform, and they are selling out arenas and right with young people. I
Yes.
mean, you right? Isn't that interesting? What do you
Yeah.
say to that, though? A good song is a good song. Go ahead, please.
Yes, it is exactly what you're saying. It makes me think. My friend Brenda Russell, who you may know, whose music you may know, her daughter works with Smokey Robinson, Lindsay, and we
Mm,
went to see Smokey Robinson at the Greek, and it was filled with young people, and they
yeah.
were all singing his songs. Now, if that's not the power, the transcendent power of music, right? It is a good song is a good song, and it'll last forever. That's the
Mm.
beauty.
Thank you so much for joining us, Bunny, because I know you have to go off to an event, and I want to make sure that I'm on time for you. I promised you I would be, and here we are on time. But before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to tell our audience about you, about Dream a World, or anything else?
Well, I'd like to say that if you have an inclination to help a child learn the arts, that and you can donate any small amount or any large
Yeah.
amount. You can go to dreamaworldedu.org and make a donation, or you can reach out to us and let us know if there's a school that your child attends or somewhere that you know that could use the arts. Um, we're here to help deliver that. We're always looking for board members. We're always looking for
Mm.
people to join us who want to give back something to their community in ways that can benefit others. So I encourage you to think about that a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. We'll make sure we push that out on our social media as well, because it's critical. It's something I'm passionate about as well. In fact, I'd like to thank our friend, Dr. Sheila Hughes, for introducing us. So
Of
I'm
Sheila.
very grateful to her. Isn't she lovely? I'm just so grateful to her for that.
She's the vice president of our board, and we couldn't live without her. She's an amazing person.
She absolutely is. So thank you so much. And thanks, really, Bunny. And I'd love to maybe one day go to one of the schools with you. I think you invited me some time ago. Haven't had the opportunity yet, but if I could, I'd really love to see more of what you do.
Oh, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody, you can find our interview with Bunny Ho on Deborah Kobylt Live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then it's an audio version as well on just anywhere that you get your podcast. Put in our show, Deborah Kobylt Live and Bunny Ho, and we'll pop up. You can listen while you're driving or anything else that you're doing. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And please look up, say it again, the dreamaworldedu.org.
Yes. Thank you
I
so
got that
much
right.
for allowing us
Yeah.
to share the message and for being a guest. And it was wonderful talking about all of this with you.
Yeah, it was wonderful to have you. So thank you. And I love your studio and love the sunflowers. I don't know if you know, that's my favorite. So thank you for having them. Thank you for having them there. Anyway, everybody, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.